Hi guys, today we're talking about Eleanor of Aquitaine. Okay, she was a queen during medieval times. So that is a real statue that is near her casket of her. Okay, so our directions are read through the text and answer the questions about Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine. Okay, a quick blurb about her. Eleanor of Aquitaine was queen consort of France and England and Duchess of Aquitaine in her own right. As the heir to the house of Poitiers, rulers in the southwestern France, she was one of the wealthiest, most powerful women in Western Europe during the High Middle Ages. She was born in 1122 in France, and she died April 1st, 1204 in Poitiers, France. Her children were Richard I of England, John, King of England. It says more, I don't know what that means, but I'm pretty sure those are her two children. She probably had more who didn't live to adulthood. Her spouse was Henry II of England. She was married from 1150 to 1189, and Louis VII of France married 1137 to 1152. I think those are not in order. Her grandchildren were Blanche of Castile, Henry III of England. Her parents were William X, Duke of Aquitaine, and Eleanor de Châtellerault. That may or may not be right. All right, Eleanor of Aquitaine, early life. Eleanor was born in what is now southern France, most likely in the year 1122. She was well educated by her cultured father, William X, Duke of Aquitaine, thoroughly versed in literature, philosophy, and languages, trained to the rigor of court life when she became her father's heir presumptive at the age of 5. An avid horsewoman, she led an active life until she inherited her father's title and extensive lands upon his death when she was 15. Becoming in one stroke Duchess of Aquitaine and by far the most eligible single young woman in Europe. She was also placed under the guardianship of the King of France and within hours was betrothed to his son and heir, Louis. The king sent an escort of 500 men to convey the news to Eleanor and transport her to her new home. Did you know Eleanor of Aquitaine is said to be responsible for the introduction of built-in fireplaces, first used when she renovated the palace of her first husband, Louis, in Paris? Shocked by the frigid north after her upbringing in southern France, Eleanor's innovation changed France. She becomes Queen of France. Louis and Eleanor were married in July 1137, but had little time to get to know each other before Louis's father, the king, fell ill and died. Within weeks of her wedding, Eleanor found herself taking possession of the drafty, unwelcoming Cite Palace in Paris that would be her new home. On Christmas Day of the same year, Louis and Eleanor were crowned King and Queen of France. Louis and Eleanor's first years as rulers were fraught with power struggles from their own vassals, the powerful Count Theobald of Champagne, for one, and the Pope in Rome. Louis, still young and intemperate, made a series of military and diplomatic blunders that set him at odds with the Pope and several of his more powerful lords. The conflict that ensued culminated in the massacre of hundreds of innocents in the town of Vitry. During a siege of the town, a great number of the populace took refuge in a church, which was set aflame by Louis's troops. Oh, that's awful. Oh my gosh. Dogged by guilt over the role in the tragedy for years, Louis responded eagerly to the Pope's call for a crusade in 1145. Eleanor joined him on the dangerous and ill-fated journey west. The crusade did not go well, and Eleanor and Louis grew increasingly estranged. After several fraught years during which Eleanor sought annulment and Louis faced increasing public criticism, they were eventually granted an annulment on the grounds of consanguinity, being related by blood, in 1152 and separated, their 2 daughters left in the custody of the king. Eleanor becomes Queen of England. Within 2 months of her annulment, after fighting off attempts to marry her at various other high-ranking French noblemen, Eleanor married Henry, Count of Anjou and Duke of Normandy. She had been rumored to have had an affair with her new husband's father and was more closely related to her new husband than she had been to Louis, but the marriage went ahead, and within 2 years, Henry and Eleanor were crowned King and Queen of England after Henry's ascension to the English throne upon the death of King Stephen. It's like a Maury. It's like I'm watching a talk show. Eleanor's marriage to Henry was more successful than her first, although not lacking in drama and discord. Henry and Eleanor often argued, but they produced 8 children together between 1152 and 1166. The extent of Eleanor's role and Henry's role is largely unknown, although it seems unlikely that a woman of her reputed energy and education would have been wholly without influence, so she probably had some say. Nonetheless, she does not emerge again into publicly active until separating from Henry in 1167 and moving her household to her lands in Poitiers. Why the reasons of the breakdown of her marriage to Henry remain unclear, it can likely be traced to Henry's increasingly visible infidelities, meaning he was having affairs. Eleanor and the Court of Love. Eleanor's time as a mistress of her own lands in Poitiers, which only lasted for 5 years, established the legend of the Court of Love, where she is reputed to have encouraged a culture of chivalry among her courtiers that had far-reaching influence on literature, poetry, music, and folklore. Although some facts about the court remain in dispute amid centuries of accumulating legend and myth, it seems that Eleanor, possibly accompanied by her daughter Marie, established a court that was largely focused on courtly love and symbolic ritual that was eagerly taken up by the troubadours and writers of the day and promulgated through poetry and song, meaning they explained it in poetry and song. This court was reported to have attracted artists and poets and to have contributed to a flowering culture and the arts, right? Paris is the city of love. And doesn't this sound like the city of love to you, where they're focused on poetry and art? I love it. To whatever extent a court existed, it appeared not to have survived Eleanor's later capture and imprisonment, which effectively removed her from any position of power and influence for the next 16 years. Imprisonment. In 1173, Eleanor's son, young Henry, fled to France, apparently to plot against his father and seize the English throne. Eleanor, rumored to be actively supporting her son's plans against her estranged husband, was arrested and imprisoned for treason. Once apprehended, she spent the next 16 years shuttled between various castles and strongholds in England, suspected of agitating her husband's interest, and said by some to have played a role in the death of his favorite mistress, Rosamond. After years of rebellion and revolt, young Henry finally succumbed to disease in 1183 and died, begging on his deathbed for his mother's release. Henry released her, under guard, to allow to England in 1184, after which she rejoined the household for at least part of the year, joining him in solemn occasions and resuming some of their ceremonial duties as queen. Regency and death. Henry II died in July 1189, and their son Richard succeeded him. One of his first acts was to free his mother from prison and restore her to full freedom. Eleanor ruled as regent in Richard's name while he took over for his father, leading the Third Crusade, which had barely begun when Henry II died. On the conclusion of this crusade, Richard, known as Richard the Lionheart, returned to England and ruled until his death in 1199. Eleanor lived to see her youngest son, John, crowned king after Richard's death and was employed by John as envoy to France. She would later support John's rule against the rebellion of her grandson Arthur, and eventually retire as a nun to an abbey in Fontenoy, where she was buried upon her death in 1204. Wow, this lady was amazing, right? So you're going to tell me some information about her. When did she live? What was going on in the world at that time? The Crusades. 3 hashtags about her. So that's just fun. What should be the soundtrack to her life? Can you think of 3 songs that would explain her? Interesting facts about her life, not who she married or when she died or was born, but interesting things about her life. She was a tough lady. Something she said. I didn't see any quotes there exactly, but you can say what she believed in. So maybe about the Court of Love. Where was she at? Was it in the Americas? Was it in, she lived here? So you can put the stuff there. What did she do? Was she a hero or a villain? Bad things that she might have done. Okay, she went through a lot of husbands. Good things that she did. What's her connection to today? Why do we care about her? 100 years from now, what will she be remembered for? And on her tombstone, what would you write? All right, guys, good luck.